So let us set up your terminal value. So in this case, we're gonna fill this to the end of the year 2030. However, for 2031, it's gonna be based on this selected terminal value here, which is the hybrid of the exit. In this case, it is the exit multiple, but we could always switch between that to be the perpetual growth, or it could be the hybrid of the exit and the perpetual growth methodology. So now we want to estimate the net present value future cash flows based on the valuation free cash flow to the firm, and we'll estimate the net present value terminal value based on the terminal value cash flows here. So in order to do that, we will have to just make sure that we have this formula also kicking in here for the beginning of this period based on Ctrl V. So we have that set up there. We have here the valuation date based on cash flows that will occur within the year. So we set up to be an average of those two dates until the end of the projected period. So we can now use those dates to determine our net present value future cash flows and the net present value terminal value. So it's going to be equal to an x and PV. So we go x and PV, use the x and PV function in Excel, and we account here for the weighted average cost of capital, which we calculated a while ago. So work weighted average cost of capital, then we have to assign the valuation free cash flow to the firm, all of those cash flows, shift, control, and hide everything using the hide arrow. We can also include the valuation date. In this case, it's this average of fiscal year end date. We take the average of those year end dates, including that valuation date, highlight all of these, and we use reference F4 to always reference to that cell since we want to copy the formula down. Close that. We can press enter. As you can see, we have for the net present value future cash flows, we have a net present value of approximately $473 billion. We can copy this formula, or ESF. This is formulas for the net present value terminal value calculation. Hit F2. As you can see, it's picking up the right values for those cash flows. So we have that set up there. So the enterprise value in this case is gonna be total sum. It's gonna be the net present value for the future cash flows plus the net present value for the terminal value. And then, since we want to arrive at the intrinsic value per share, we have to deduct the net debt. So we go to the comps tab where we have the net debt. We extract the net debt from the comps tab. Amazon's net debt of approximately $59 billion. So we can hit F2 and make sure that it's negative, so we can sum that, go to the enterprise value minus the net debt, arrive at the equity value. So have that set up now to determine the equity value in per share basis, the equity value per share. Let us also reference from the comparable company analysis tab the shares outstanding, 518 million shares. So let's take the equity value and we divide that by the fully diluted shares outstanding. And then we have here the equity value per share. So we have the equity value per share, which is the intrinsic value. So if we switch in our control panel, switch to the control panel, and we change the scenario to say we want this to reflect the bull case, and we switch back to the DCF tab, you can see that the intrinsic value per share is at approximately so we have that set up there. So if we switch back again to change this to the bear case, as you can see, we'll have different intrinsic values kicking in here, and this is very, very important in our DCF calculations. So now what we want to do next is we now want to sensitize this intrinsic value per share based on different scenarios. So in this case, we will consider certain assumptions in our model for the exit multiple, and also we will consider the discount rate, which is the weighted average cost of capital, as it fluctuates. So essentially what we are saying here is that what is the exit